known for some time. Something about the world ain't right. The darkness lives in plain sight. In the ether, adjust your eyes. There are those that have no clue. You give them hints, they just stare at you. Most have lived in Plato's cave, watching. Welcome, everyone. It is just George H. Lewis and myself today. When I initially set this up, it was going to be Scott, George, and I doing a deep dive. But and Scott may join us, but he's dealing with a few things with his mother, as I know how that goes. So that being said, George, welcome to Truth Stream. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, it's really great to be back. So nice to be together today. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, I want to read a little bit about George, just so people have an understanding that we may have not gotten into. A lot of times there's just so much going on some of our shows. So this is going to be a deep dive into George, because I've only known about him, I don't know, maybe for half a year. And I'm just surprised by all the alignment and the subject matters that he discusses that I want to learn a lot more about. And then if the people in the audience may have questions that come up, we might explore those as well for George. So George H. Lewis is a sound healer, artist, and transformational guide whose aim is to help you access deeper resonance and alignment in every aspect of life. His work blends creativity, expression, sound therapy, astrology, and immersive experiences to support personal growth, healing, and spiritual insight. Creative and expressive work headline, explore the power of art and symbolism. So these are some of the things we may be getting into. George's visual art, photography, symbolic creations as vibrational nodes, awakening intuition and emotional resonance. And so his pieces invite engagement, reflection, connection to the larger field of transformation. So that's a little bit about George. And where do you feel most compelled to start? I mean, I think, are you seeing aspects of who you were as a child now coming into fruition, and as far as like questioning the world and things that didn't align then? Or what is that like for you as the child in you emerges into this new world that we're creating?
I mean, it's interesting you bring up the archetype of the child, the puer aeternus, the eternal child. So many of us have been ripped out of that. We've never really had the experience of that deep, deep authenticity. And, you know, to be fully activated, conscious as a human being is to be in our authentic self. I mean, there are studies out there with Heart Math Institute showing that authenticity carries a frequency that is way higher and more integrated than even the love frequency, because you can't really love without being truly authentic. And I think, you know, of course, the language for me is astrology, not exclusively, but we see with the Saturn-Neptune conjunction at the 0 point of Aries, which hasn't happened at the entry point of Aries for over 6,000 years. This is a radical departure away from us bending the knee to old systems. And we can discuss the collective global situation as far as the reduction and the dismantlement of the British Empire and the old systems-based global system on the one hand, and the 3D level, or we can talk about Saturn as far as the matrix having a fundamental psychological control over we individuals, and us coming out of that hypnosis and into something incredibly freeing. I mean, I'd go as far as to say that we are in a time in our civilization now where we're going to experience freedom. We have the potential to experience freedom that is not in the memory of the collective psyche. Wow. Humans have forgotten, truly, even great-grandparents, it's not there. And so we are entering a point where we truly can be free. And it requires an element of faith. Why? Because we've been so bent down in the enslavement system that we are deeply cynical, rightly so. So when something new comes up onto the table, like the positive psyop that we call Q, yes, it's a psyop, but it's a positive psyop. What do I mean? It's here to awaken the people. Just take myself. By investigating those symbols, those open-ended labels, those little mini drops, it gets us to ask the question. It gets us to get activated, to begin to understand what it is to be human, to be creative, to be authentic. And so in some ways, the spiritual component is so fundamental because it's all about that dance between the spiritual and the material. To be fully human is to play in that polarity. You know, some of us choose to live in the cave as a monk, fair enough, but most of humanity choose and seek to choose, if they have their own autonomy, to live in the physical body, but also to connect to God, to connect to source. And that's really the dance. As an artist, someone who, the child that you speak about, the eternal child is the freedom to explore that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, you know, and I think, you know, as a kid, I always felt something was off in the world. But little did I know that I'd be going on this journey, you know, publicly and with all these brilliant, beautiful souls. It's just, it's been incredible to learn and to go to different events. You know, Scott and I are going to Threadfest this month, and then we're going to New York next month. Is it possible you might possibly be joining us at that event?
Well, I mean, I would be delighted. I mean, I haven't been given a specific invitation, but I'm very open to. I mean, actually, it's quite lucky because I have a little healing temple I have access to. So I'm actually seeing quite a lot of people in the month of April up there. So I will be in New York at that time.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's the 25th and 26th. So we'll make sure you get a formal invitation, because there's something magical that happens when you meet people in person. In fact, there's someone that's going to be joining us that I've met in person. I won't say it till he actually gets here, but it's someone I was unexpecting to even be available, but he'll be jumping in. I don't know if you've done shows with gentlemen or not. We're gonna find out real soon. So let's take a look at what is going on in the world right now. And I know that you have a very positive outlook on things, and I think that that's where you and I are aligned. And I think it'd be great to go into that, because this is a very turbulent time, and I think some positivity, not you know, sprinkled with a bunch of BS and new agey stuff or anything, like hopium, if you will, but like really where we're at. I think it'd be amazing for you to go into that, what's going on in the world geopolitically.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big one. I'm going to continue off my theme of faith, but it's really rooted in also prophecy. The United States plays a very, very, very significant role in the evolutionary consciousness of mankind. I'm not saying it's exclusive. I think the Russian bear plays a very important part too, but I'm not here to discuss that today. But I've read the books Anastasia by Megre, and they inspire me completely, and they're Russian. The United States, and I've said this before, but I'll say it again, because really we human beings, we have to understand this, that when the United States was formed on July 4th, 1776, the galactic cosmology was quite extraordinary. And even if people don't understand astrology, they've really got to begin to understand that the sky carries energies, and the Vatican, the Masonic lodges have always and continue to use this technology. And my humble offering again and again is to remind we the people, again, very American here, so forgive me for the accent for a moment, that we the people have access to this technology as well. And on July 4th, 1776, the great benefics of Jupiter and Venus were conjoined the sun on July 4th. That's powerful stuff, because the benefics give potency, power, prophecy, a sense of abundance, a sense of destiny. Not only was that the case, but also the sun was conjoined our second star, Sirius. And there's much conversation about who came in and the absolute miracle of that event against the great powers, the tyrannical dictatorships and monarchies of Europe, and the control system through maritime law. And what I see today now is the renewal of those vows. Isn't it interesting? It's exactly a Pluto cycle later. I mean, we're just over it. I'm going to be technical for any of those people interested in astrology. It was actually at the late degrees of Capricorn Pluto when the United States birth chart was founded. But it's a 250 year cycle. So here we are now, and Jupiter is in its exaltation once more in Cancer this year. We really are drilling down on understanding how important freedom is. You know, without freedom, you can't have security. To quote Benjamin Franklin, you can't have security without freedom. You have tyranny. Freedom is the alpha and the omega. And so the United States plays this absolutely important role. So I have faith. So even the difficulty of what we're seeing in Iran right now, and again, it's like a Wagner play here, opera, where we're dealing with 4 or 5 acts, and we're not even in the penultimate part of it. We have to take a breath. We have to see moves and counter moves. We have to have some faith, because everyone jumps off because they have a reaction. Oh, this, oh, that, because that's the programming of the mainstream media to keep us in fight and flight. That is what Saturn does. And Saturn's at his weakest position. He's been for thousands of years at the 0 point of Aries conjunct Neptune. Neptune dissolves Saturn.
Real quick, here's our guest. Do you know who Mark Atwood is?
Oh my gosh, of course I do. He's incredible. Yes.
George H. Lewis. I can't believe it.
Well, we have a few mutual friends, Mark.
I know we do.
I mean, I'm very, very keen. This is a wonderful surprise.
I got a text from Joe, and I was like, George H. Lewis, my God, why haven't I spoken to him? So I jumped straight in. So it's really an honor to meet you.
Vice versa. And actually, I'll just piggyback off Joe's saying a moment ago before you arrived. What's extraordinary for all of us souls coming together at this time? I mean, I can only just reiterate what Joe just said, is all the closest souls basically in my life I've reconnected with in the last 5 years.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mark is jumping into the middle of this in some ways, but Mark's vibrations are very high, and I look at him as a very kindred spirit in this. So to have you guys on together is this the first time you've done a show together?
Yep.
Oh my God. This is incredible. This is really incredible. I mean, it really, wow. Mark, anything you want to say to start off with? We're talking about what's going on in Iran and trying to keep things positive, etc. So please go from there.
Well, I was just listening to George, and the Wagner allegory is perfect. And I just did a show today with a guy called Rich Does Politics, and he wanted me to not do woo-woo stuff. It was very difficult, and it was quite interesting because he was saying, look, they're bombing Iran and it's terrible. And I said, well, yes, bombing is terrible, but at the same time, this is a spiritual process. And it was like really interesting to talk about that stuff in a different room than I'm usually in, because his channel is very much sort of politics based. And I was like, he couldn't quite get his head around the fact that I told him Donald Trump was a time traveler and all that kind of stuff. And, it's a spiritual war. It's as simple as that. It's actually amazing. And I loved what George said about people not forgetting what it is to be free. Literally, the human race doesn't know what it is to be free. It has no idea, no concept of it, because we've never had it.
Right. No, I'm glad that you brought that up. To go off of what Mark just said, George, I'd love you to talk about that we have never really been free. Like, what's the closest humanity's ever been to where we're going? I mean, have we ever really been close?
I mean, this is where it gets speculative still in our evolutionary period right now, because of the reemergence of knowledge of Tartaria and, of course, Atlantis, Lemuria. But if I could just make it a little bit more 3D for a moment, for most of recorded history, human civilization has been really organized around externalized control. This is gods in the sky. Mark and I come from Britain. It was divine right of kings. Every morning we would have to pray, God save the Queen. In my day, now God save the King. Laws were handed down from above. Time, morality, truth dictated outwardly. And this structure, it worked for many human beings for a long time, but it's breaking down. And this is the Saturn-Neptune conjunction at the 0 point of Aries. And we are remembering. See, part of the journey work, this is where the spiritual side is so intrinsic, is it's not just leaping forward to the new earth. It's actually a remembrance of how we once were. And that's when it gets into the esoteric, because of the DNA. The last post of Q for me is absolutely fascinating about our DNA and ascension. And I think if I can bring it to the 3D at one time, and then I'd love to hear Mark, is if you take the Middle East, which is obviously the tinderbox, the hot box of the Abrahamic and deliberate British divide and rule, and which continues from Rome, of course. It's the Jesuit Khazarian machination of keeping us totally divided, at war with one another. And once we understand that, and that we are pawns and we can do the spiritual work, but also we can understand more about our real history of the Nephilim, of where it comes from galactically, cosmically, we're able to then take a deep breath and pull back and use our intuition to really decide, does that sound right? Does that feel right? As opposed to act one, act two, where we haven't even finished the opera, you know. And so the faith is huge here, because I believe, like Mark, that Trump, because traveling with Byron Trump and all, and it's not just Ingersoll Lockwood, it's just the whole 9 yards of John Trump and real Tesla, and understanding that we're dealing with something which is cosmic. And many of us have had non-terrestrial experiences now. Yes, many of us. And it's a question of, okay, really, it's something, the frequency is suddenly expanding. And this is the spiritual awakening. The structure, Saturn is breaking down. I described it in terms of matrix. It's just collapsing, it's dissolving. And here we are standing in our inner authority for the first time in the collective memory.
Beautifully said. Mark, care to piggyback off? This is so great. I'm just going to kind of sit back and enjoy this conversation in some ways. I love this.
Well, I haven't even said hello to you yet. How are you doing?
Yeah. Well, it was so great that you could just jump in here and
just happened to be free.
I know. That was beautiful. So hello, Mr. Atwood. Nice to see you.
You too. I don't know if I could put it any better than George. It's just very eloquently put. I did mention actually at the show earlier today, the post from 22 about your DNA. It's a war for your DNA, the ascension aspect of that, because that's been clear to me for quite a number of years. But what's been interesting is the wobbles on the way, which I find quite interesting, because it's been a real test of faith for me personally. And I have wobbled. There've been moments when I've wobbled and I've sat there and gone, what am I doing? I'm out there. I've said all this stuff. Am I right? You know, and you do get concerned about that, but it's really, for me, one giant initiation. It's one giant ritual that we're going through, which is extraordinary. It's like military training, and I did military training, so you know I can make that analogy.
Right.
And sometimes it's tough, and sometimes you think you can't carry on, and sometimes you don't want to get up in the morning, and sometimes you know you've got to keep finding that resolve. And I often like it to George Carlin's famous sketch on bacteria, where he said, you know, we swam in the raw sewage in New York, and it tempered us like steel. And that's what I think all of this is. It's just one spiritual lesson after another, and it's profound, and it's a deeply amazing time to be alive. And I know people say that all the time, and it's a bit of a cliche, but it really is. But it's not easy.
No. Well, and you know, and we've heard that this is, a lot of this has been done, that we're watching the movie, etc. But I think the beauty of what we're going through, if that is indeed the case, what we've been put through in the last at least 6 to 8 years, is that it's felt very real, and we've had to do things that, I mean, if this is a test, it's like a real test. Like, who are you in the case of COVID? How did you stand up? Could you look back and go, okay, this is you know what I did for humanity? So it is a very real thing, even though it's quote unquote a test. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yeah. Could you expand on that, George? Like, what are your thoughts of, as far as the plan, George, and what's been done, but then how?
Well, it's interesting because firstly, I agree with Mark. We are all tested. No one is off the hook here, because it's a breakdown of our belief systems. And even those who, like myself, who try and teach people not to define oneself through a belief system, my gosh, we're all indoctrinated. I mean, I am the poster child for that indoctrination. Posh English boarding school. Trust me, that's an indoctrination. That's a conversation for another time, which Mark and I can have a good old jolly chinwag over. I think the thing is, the COVID thing, if you look at it, and I try and look at it galactically, I try and breathe in and up there and really look down on humanity. what would have been the best way to awaken humanity without creating a serious destructive, where there would have been a collapse and the evolution wouldn't have been possible? Well, the COVID thing, if I'm looking at it dispassionately here, was actually a brilliant way for humanity to go through the birth canal. Because, and then who knows what Operation Warp Speed is? For me, it's not just salines in various solutions and stopping the deep state with their murder protocol and dissolving that. But I also think it's speeding up the 16-year plan of the 2030 agenda, so we, like frogs, realize we're being boiled. And it's almost that birth canal of the realization of what is consciousness, because we've had the mission creep, slow creep towards this very dark nihilistic secularism, and it's worse than secularism. It's deeply nihilistic. It's deeply destructive. The consciousness is absolutely null and void, and it's that reemergence of the divine in us. Let's turn the fucking lights back on, and to me, that gets me excited. That gets my gander up. And so the COVID thing, yes, disastrous. I mean, I've basically lost my daughter in the last 5 years because of my views on this. But it's her journey. And we've all got our own versions of that. And that's why people like our souls coming together with New Soul Family. And ultimately, all of us are here to help with the healing cleanup in the next decades. Absolutely. That's really what we're preparing for.
Well said. I didn't even know you were a father.
I have 2 children. I don't talk much. I have Scorpio in the 4th house. I don't talk about it much.
Right. No, thank you for sharing that. I think that gives some.
I'm very close to my son, and I pray one day to be very close to my daughter again. But it's also part of my journey, my soul contract, and coming out of disappointment, victimization, and into these are journey paths. Because one thing I love is my therapy work, and people come to me, and I think I'm a much better therapist because of the trauma and the suffering that I've had, and in that individual experience is the collective experience. I am you, you are me.
Right. And for another father in the house, what's been the journey, if Mark's willing to talk about the journey of his work with, doing this work and the effect on the children. And I was there in Ireland when his daughter was kind of pulled on stage a little bit. It was a beautiful moment. So I'd love Mark to talk a bit about that and, the experience of being a father during this time.
Well, yeah, I was watching that clip yesterday, funnily enough, because she won't let me put it out there, and I keep saying to her, "You were amazing." Do you remember we were sat there in that cold barn? Yeah, and I was just willing the words to come into her mouth because I'm so proud of her. She's a free thinker, and that's amazing. But my journey with her in particular, I mean, I've got 5 children, and that daughter, I try not to talk about my children's names and stuff for protecting reasons, but the journey with her in particular was very interesting. She got in the back of my car in 2020 and she went, "Donald Trump's a pedophile," and I went, "Oh God," it's been this real battle to fighting the MK Ultra that the kids are getting, especially in this country. The indoctrination at schools has been awful. I had to take my eldest son out of the local school because he was being systematically bullied by the teachers. And I put him into a local grammar school. And I was picking him up during the COVID years from school. And he was down, because they were making him wear a mask. And by the way, I homeschooled my kids for 3.5 years in Morocco before we moved to Ireland. So they'd had that experience. They all knew that they could leave school. They all know. I talk about this quite a lot on my show. Whenever I drop them off at school, I say the same thing to them every morning. Have a nice day in prison. Remember, everything they're teaching you is bullshit, and question everything, including this. Have a nice day. See you later. And they are. I'm very proud of the fact that they are all. I've taught them to be critical thinkers as much as possible. I encourage them to don't get a job, set up a business. And don't set up a limited company, set up a private members association. What's that, Dad? Because they're not learning any of this stuff in the system that they're in. The desire for them it's quite amusing because I just had about 7 teenagers in the kitchen. And when I started my podcast, and my kids begged me, they literally begged me not to protest outside the school because I was so angry with the school system and what they were doing to the children. It was child abuse, what happened to the kids in schools in Ireland, especially. And that's my experience. You know, they'd make them sit in class with the windows wide open and no heating, and they wouldn't let them put coats on. You know, they would forcing them to wear masks. I took my twin boys out of the school when they brought the mask mandates in because they were 10 years old at the time. And then the teacher came to my house and literally knocked at my door after ringing me 20 times and basically forced me to go for a meeting with a representative from the organization in Ireland called TUSLA. You know, people in Ireland will know about TUSLA, but outside of Ireland, it's kind of like social services. They're really a child trafficking organization, right? And I had to go into this meeting with the teacher and this woman from TUSLA, and she was demonically possessed, 100%. And I can tell because they don't like me at all. They sort of bristle like this when they see me. It's quite amusing because I can see demonic energy in people. And so I put my hand out to her. I said, all pleasantries and niceties. And then I said, and then they threatened me with prison because I'd taken the kids out of school for so long. And I had to sit there and go, well, actually, I should be taking you to prison because you've committed child abuse. And then she couldn't look at me, and the teacher just sort of shook his head and said, that's above my pay grade. And I said, well, you need to think about that. And then I left. And it's constantly, you know, in terms of being a father, it's like the matrix is, you know, demonic energies come through. They attack you through your children. And it's been a very interesting journey that means we've had to have a lot of deep conversations. And the reason I was bringing up the teenagers is because they begged me not to protest outside the school. So I agreed to that. I agreed that they still wanted to go to school. I agreed to that. It is their journey, as George says, you know, and I respect that they've got to, you know, I don't want them to be in the school, but it's their journey. They're learning about authoritarianism. They're learning about lies. They're learning a lot of things that's nothing to do with what they're actually being taught in school, which is making them stronger, hopefully as adults, to go forward and help us build the new world, because that's what we need. We need more free thinking children. But these other kids, the other kids that they're friends with, they were the ones telling my kids that I was cool and that I was telling the truth, or that, you know, I was interesting, or they refer to me like, well, Mark knows what's going on, go and talk to him. So I became cool to my kids again because of their friends' reactions to me standing up and speaking out.
You really hit an amazing point right there, because sometimes the people closest to you can't see the growth that you have went through. They view you in the lens that they always have, right?
And when we learn from the story of Jesus, I mean, we see in a way how he went through that process of being ostracized from the local immediate family. And I think that's often a cycle that all of us humans actually, because to me, Jesus is an exemplar. You know, the real Christianity is we can see him as a guide, as a reference point of how to live a life, rather than this doctrinal nonsense of he's separate and he's just God. I think there's something about that journey of him not being seen visibly by his immediate, which we all can relate to at this time, which gives us our strength to. And then when you hear other people tell your children, I think I've had that a little bit with my son, and it's quite nice when it can come back that way.
Right. No, it is amazing, because, you know, and it's no secret on this show that I used to look at U2 and Bono. You know, this is way back in the day.
I thought you meant us too.
No, I view you as much.
Me and George have never hung out with Bono. What are you talking about?
And our music is so much nicer.
Well, just, you know, that Bono was, I suppose, in a way, this was, you know, Joshua Tree. That was the role model to me. Like, if you could be doing that, you know, singing and helping change the world and using your talents, that was like, oh my gosh, that's who my role model was in a lot of ways. And then, of course, I've learned, okay, who's this guy hanging out with the cabal and the WEF and all that? And so it is interesting that now one of my primary role models, aside from these two men on the show, is Jesus Christ. I mean, I think a lot of the conversations that we've had on our show, all of our shows, is I would say if we can get humanity to realize how cool and amazing Jesus really is, and was at the same time, because this religion comes in, and then it makes you almost feel like it's unattainable, or like, I just thought evil was folklore, and that was years ago. And then finally this COVID thing happens, and you start realizing, because I remember as a kid thinking, well, if this biblical stuff was really real, I'd be on board. And then it was like God said, hold my beer, here you go. And that's when Scott and I started Truth Stream. But what is the role model of Christ been for you guys? I mean, has it always been there, or is there something where you've really pulled back layers over the unfolding of this experience?
Mark, do you want to go? Okay. I mean, for me, it's freedom, because I think he was showing us back then, what was the law? What was the book? It was the Pharisaic strict dogma of control, Satan. And here we are again. The repeat pattern is showing us that we can have that connection. We don't need to go through a third party, whether it's a minister or a priest or a teacher or a doctor. I mean, of course, a proper doctor is a healer. I mean, I go back to Pythagoras and Hippocrates, obviously, particularly. And so for us, in a way, Jesus is reminding us of the sovereignty of the individual, the total self-mastery, potentiality. And also the creativity comes from that knowing thyself. It's connected to the Delphic oracle, to know thyself. And we have been, because of Saturn, the whole system, big, clever mission creep. I mean, everyone on these shows knows the history, just even since 1871, when the US was turned into a corporation, the sinking of the Titanic, the introduction of the Third Federal Reserve, 1913, and that slow, clever creep. I mean, even the protocols of the Elders of Zion and the desire to create wars, that's all breaking down now, because enough people are beginning to question again and see it. And in some ways, it doesn't matter if Tom, Dick, and Fanny have different views on the journey. The great thing is we're asking questions. So a little bit of, tension here and there. People believe this with Iran or that. To me, I'm okay with that, because ultimately, through the breath, we have massive faith. And it's lovely for me to meet you today, Mark, because you're a man of faith. Your writings are wonderful, and you inspire a lot of people, and you've really been hard at it. They've been going after you, and you have a lot of strength. It's very inspiring to all of us who are aware. And I think that is almost that patriotic. It's much bigger than whether we're English or half British American. We're patriots of the world because we're patriots of humanity. And I think Jesus was kind of saying that, maybe in different language, in Aramaic, but ultimately he was talking about frequency. In the beginning wasn't the word. In the beginning was the sound, was the frequency.
Yeah, that one hit me years ago, because once I went, hang on, the beginning was the word. That's sound, and then once that hits you, you're like, oh, beautiful. I mean, I grew up in a village in Northamptonshire. I don't know if you know Northamptonshire, George. There's a village there called Bugbrook. It's in the Doomsday Book as Butcherbrook, and it's a beautiful place. But I came into this realm. I talk about it in this book. He said, I've got a collection of books here, like this one. My earliest memory was demons trying to recruit me.
Wow, that's interesting.
No, and I blocked that memory out until COVID, really. And I went on a podcast, and I started talking about this, and it just blurted out. And I came off the podcast, and I was like, shit, 100,000 people had just seen me talking about demons trying to recruit me. I'm ruined. This was like one of the jokes I was talking about when I met Joe. And in that village, there was a lay preacher. I've mentioned this guy a few times, and I think he deserves for me to keep mentioning him. His name was Noel Stanton. Noel was a lay preacher in the village church, which was a beautiful 12th century Northamptonshire sandstone building, a gorgeous thing. My great-grandfather used to climb it to fix the rooster at the top without any ropes. And I had an interesting relationship I felt God very closely, but this church that he set up was called the Jesus Fellowship. And then it evolved in the 80s to become the Jesus Army. And it was quite famous because you'd see these big double-decker buses with the Jesus Army and a big red cross. And they'd go down to London and they'd pick up, drug addicts and then bring them back to the village and they'd made so much money so quickly. They took over houses, farms, buildings, businesses. They had a clothing business. They were just churning out the cash. But behind the scenes, Noel Stanton was a satanic paedophile who abused my dad when he was a choir boy, and lots of other boys. And my first proper girlfriend committed suicide, and I think it's because her mum had joined that church in the 60s, and I never got to the bottom of exactly what happened there, but it was not good. So I was surrounded by paedophiles as a kid, and ones that were using the cover of Jesus, which was, it doesn't get any darker, really. But I had a very strong relationship with God, and it was a very individual relationship. I've basically been in the channel my whole life. I just didn't realize it. It took me quite a long time to realize that I am a channel and I've got a direct line to God. And if you look at somebody did I don't know if it's called numerology, or they did a reading on my birthday, and basically said, oh, you're 33/6, you're Christ consciousness. And it's Christ consciousness that's the thing that is rising within us. It's a very, it's been a big argument I've had over the years with various people about whether we should even be talking about satanic paedophilia and everything, because I was talking about it 10, 15 years ago on Facebook, and quite a famous person in the UK said, stop doing that, it's an inside job. And I'm like, well, I know it's an inside job, but we've got to let everybody know what's going on, because if you don't know what the enemy is, how are we going to get through this?
Right.
And I turned my back on God when my father died at the age of 37. I was 17, and I had to turn his life support machine off because they couldn't wake him up from this coma, and they couldn't get a response out of my mother because she'd lost the plot. She was just sat there tapping his hands for 24 hours. They couldn't get any sense out of her. And I came out of the chapel of rest, and I had a little bottle of whiskey in my pocket, and I looked up at the sky and I said, I hate you. And I basically became agnostic for 20 odd years, and I was on a self-destructive mission. I thought I was going to drop dead any minute. I thought if I outlived my dad, I've done well. I've outlived him by 20 years now, so I have done well. But I was suicidal in 2018. I thought I'd lost everything. My marriage was over. I love my kids. I didn't want to leave them. My business had gone to the dogs. And I just got told, you've got to let everything go. And I just kept hearing the same thing, let everything go. And I was like, everything? Because I thought I understood that. Years before, I was going to write a book called Life is Easy, and I put up a website. I did everything, to get this thing out. And I was putting memes out, and I put out a meme saying, let go, little girl holding a balloon. And I was like, I didn't get it at all. As a Taoist principle, I kind of understood it intellectually, but I didn't truly feel it. And I said back to God, including my children, yes, you have to let everything go. And I was like, whoa. And then I realized you have to let everything go. That's what COVID was all about. It was about us letting go of all these ideas about chemistry, medicine, physics, the shape of the world, the stars, what are they? All of that stuff. We have to let it all go so that it can come back in the way that it's supposed to, which is what I think relates to what George was saying about remembering what it is to be free. But you've got to decouple from the system first to be able to get back in the right way, because we've been MK Ultra and mind control for so long that we don't know who we are. So we're remembering who we are, which is really one of the key messages of my podcast. Is like, if you're watching this and you've never done a QHHT session, go and do it. It's really useful. Go and find out who your past lives were, because once you start to realize that you are an eternal spirit and you're a multi-dimensional being, then you move past the fear. And moving past the fear is very much about connecting to that Christ consciousness. So yeah, it's been a complicated relationship that I've had with the concept of Jesus. And I think, Mary Magdalene was taken out of a lot of the stuff. And I think she's extremely powerful and doesn't get the respect. That rising of the feminine energy and us becoming whole again is what we're going through, which is why in the States when I met you, Joe. I got on stage and said COVID was the best thing that ever happened to humanity because we now know who everybody is.
Right.
And then after that, you know, I got told by God to make a video to go onto X, and I'd stayed off X because it was censoring everybody. And I got nagged and nagged and nagged and nagged. And it was like, just tell everybody that got vaccinated, we're there for them. So, and it'll get 1 million views. And when it gets to 1 million views, things will shift. That video is now on 1.8 million views. And I did it last thing at night on a ferry back to Ireland with a hangover after my mum's birthday. So, and it was like 11 o'clock at night, quick 5-minute video, go to bed, up the next day, 100,000. Oh my God. You know, so I trust the guidance, and I don't always get it right.
Sure.
But my message is really, you know, I don't think anybody's perfect, and it's part of the control system we've all been whispered in the ear by fourth dimensional entities. Basically, this is the simplest way I can put it. Whether that's full possession or not, we all get influenced by that in order for us to make bad decisions in our life, to then trap us in guilt and shame. But we have to move past the guilt and shame. We have to forgive everybody, including ourselves, which is the hardest part, I think. And then if we can do that collectively, then we're going to move forward.
Beautifully said. There was a comment that came up, and I'd love both of you guys to go into your take or description of Mary Magdalene. I think, you know, maybe that's something that we haven't really delved in on the show. So, George, if you want to frequencies of Mary Magdalene or anything you want to say about the subject matter, I think that'd be wonderful.
Can I, before I do that, just also share something off what Mark was sharing?
Please.
I think, you know, in the last 5 years, we've really come to realize, I mean, let's take the famous speech back in April 1961, I think it was John F. Kennedy. You know, we're opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy. And it's about infiltration instead of invasion, and subversion instead of elections, and intimidation instead of free choice, etc. And I think that realization, this is where the New Age and the La La Land is silly, because to deny it doesn't exist, you can't move to the next level of consciousness. We have to witness it. We can't dwell in it for too long. The dance really is to observe it, understand, and the heinous crimes of our country in Great Britain and around the world. It's so shocking how every institution basically that's had power has been inverted and corrupted. And once we come to realize that, we don't have to know all the ins and outs, but this is the end of the age of Pisces. Pisces at the low frequency is deception, it is delusion, it is self-undoing, it is psychic attack. Yes, it is. At the highest level, it's Christ consciousness, hence the fish, hence the Piscean age of Christ. But we weren't able, for lots of reasons, due to the inversion, due to this, the intimidation and the concealment of everything being inverted. We're coming out of that now. So I do feel, in a way, we have to understand what's happened to us, but not dwell in the conspiracy, which is the truth, for too long, and do the spiritual work. And then, of course, Mary Magdalene, in some ways, represents that spiritual work of the refinement of the polarity, meaning the masculine and the feminine, which is in all of us, whether we're born male or female, which we all are. I mean, I think only one in 500,000 is naturally born a hermaphrodite. It's important to understand that humans are born male and female largely. And I'm not talking about sexual proclivity at all here. I'm talking about the woke nonsense is transhumanism. We're not discussing that. Mary Magdalene is a very powerful archetype of the sacred feminine, and how one can integrate sensuality with spiritual gnosis. And that has to come back into the collective once again. And as an astrologer, I see it so clearly, with how that Venusian coupled with Jupiterian expression in a woman is so important, because it gives birth, it's gestation, it's generation, and it needs to be venerated. And we are going to integrate once more the masculine and the feminine, because the sacred masculine is equally as important, the Archangel Michael archetype, for example. And in some ways, Mark, you're an exemplar of that, because standing up against the tyranny, being very visible. Without that, there's no civilization. Without that male archetype, there's no civilization. So we need both.
Yeah, well, beautifully put. So I had a big realization years ago. Mary Magdalene is Ma. My name is Mark. Anthony, Mark Atwood, Ma. I lived in Manchester. I lived on Markington Street. I moved to Marrakesh in Morocco, the real name for which is Maghreb. And I was like, what the hell is this? This Ma. And then I met Huna Flash, and he taught me the Lemurian language and the dragon riding with Ma, Ha, Ka, Wa, Ta, He, Ta, Wa, Ka, Ha, Ma, Wa. It's like electricity runs through you. So Ma is the energy of the first light of creation.
Yes.
So can I play you a poem, actually?
I'd love this.
Yeah,
just a short one.
I love the late Huna Flash. I was at some of his ceremonies. Amazing man.
He was very interesting. I've got a lot of things to say about him one day, but not today. But I'm going to share this because it was inspired. This poem was inspired by the idea of dragon riding, which is, and I did this with him in Ireland, where you sit there and you go through all of these sounds, because each one of these sounds is a multi-dimensional sound. I mean, one of these Ma contains so much information. It's like an encyclopedia. You know, it's incredible. This old language, the original languages of humanity are, well, really, it's like a progression from telepathy, but they contain so much information. And what I found interesting about the progression up and down, you go up a ladder and then down a ladder with this thing, is it's kind of reminded me of Bilbo Baggins and the Hobbit's journey being called There and Back Again. And I think that links to the fact that Tolkien said in 1959 in Amsterdam on a radio interview that his books were based on the true history of the earth. And, you know, a Hobbit's journey is really our spiritual journey. And when Frodo gets, you know, he doesn't throw the ring into the volcano. It happens with Gollum tripping up and falling in. So then he goes on to, he ascends, you know, he gets on the boat and he goes off to Valhalla or wherever. So I think Tolkien was definitely spiritually onto something, and it's ancient. So I put it into this poem. He said, it's only a minute long.
There and back again. Ma ha ka wa ta he. He ta wa ka ha ma. There and back again. You see, multi-dimensional beings are we. From the energy of the first light, through the calendar of the light of days, with the veil down, we were in a haze. 1 to 10 and back again. In the darkness we held each other tightly until the light came. The dragon blood, the Taki, the Akashic potentiality. At the speed of memory, we came there and back again. From the I am to the we are, we came far, there and back again.
Beautiful, very moving.
Beautiful. I love that I'm on with two artists that I mean, it's amazing to see art that's authentic and that's, you know, moving in this towards the new world, and then it's done and you were not questioning, okay, was this something that was created by the cabal, and then, you know, 90% of it's true, but then there's that 10% of it that's for the brainwashing or whatever. Like this, you guys are like, you know, you resonate truth and authenticity and healing. And I love the fact that this show wasn't even planned, but it was up to source to bring us all together just like this. And I want to know if you guys have any questions for each other, since you've never met. So I would love for you guys to ask each other. Please go right ahead, and then we can bring in possibly some questions from the audience as well. So
Questions.
I mean, Mark, I'd love to get your insights into how it's playing out with Iran and Israel.
Yeah, this comes up.
It's, you know, it's on everyone's hearts and minds, you know.
It's coming up a lot, isn't it? I said to the politics guy, Rich, this morning, I said, it's really all about Stargate. You know that? And he went, no, don't go there.
Gene Decode speaks a little bit about that, doesn't he? Which I think is very fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah, and I said, the Iraq War was really about Gilgamesh, and and they were, no, you can't say that. I was like, that. If you don't want to know the truth, then don't listen to it. We're seeing the complete in the 3D. I think we're seeing with Iran is actually the deconstruction of the Satanic Empire. Now, some people would call that the British Empire, but I think that's a misnomer, because the British were the cover story, for a satanic organization, and that is being dismantled before our eyes. And what I've learned to do is trust the process. So there's a lot of people going, oh, Trump is supposed to be an anti-war president, and there he is bombing things. And I think I was just looking at Dr. Sala before you sent me a message, and he was talking about the fact that this Iranian thing and the Venezuelan thing is actually being used to disclose the advanced technology that they're using. I mean, how did they do that Venezuelan operation? There's some technologies there that we don't know about that I think are being revealed. And I think that's what it's all about. If, I've said this for 6 years on the podcast, if I'm wrong about that, we are truly screwed. And I just don't believe that we are, because we already dodged the biggest bullet in history when she lost in 2016.
Right.
Because part of the 16-year plan was to put us into a devastating war situation in 2017 with Iran. And so, I think this is all about disclosure. And I think the things have already been played out, and we are watching a theatrical production. But it's for our benefit. Can I say with complete clarity what that benefit is? Not at the moment, because I'm still in the middle of it.
Well said. Well said. And Mark, do you have any questions for George, since you two have never been on a show before?
Yeah. Do you want to come and do a show with me, George?
I'd love to. It would be an absolute pleasure.
Yeah. I was watching you years ago, and then when Joe sent me the message, I went, George, oh God, why haven't I been in touch with George?
And we have a mutual friend, Christiane Northrup.
One of my
absolute.
Oh my God, I love that woman.
Yeah,
I love that woman. She gave, she gave me such a good review of my book, and she sent me a video of her playing ICU to one of her live meetings, and all these people were in tears, and it's just beautiful. She's a beautiful woman. And in fact, she came to mind actually, because when I said earlier that I was given the message, this is back before I realized that I was actually having spiritual communications. I got told to write this book called Life is Easy. When I first spoke to Christiane, she got the same message, and she went and actually wrote a book about life being easy. And I got stopped because I listened to the Facebook comments saying, how can you say life is easy when there's people dying in Africa? And I was like, oh God, this is going to be too difficult. I wasn't quite ready then. But you also know Laura Eisenhower, don't you?
Yeah.
I love Laura. She's amazing. Have you met her personally?
Oh, many times. I actually call her a very dear friend. I mean, she's probably one of the most authentic people I know. I mean, yes, she's a great astrologer, and obviously because of her lineage, understanding a lot more about the secret space program and hidden technologies. I do find her deeply fascinating, and yeah, she's a beautiful soul.
Yeah, she is. And I think, us meeting now, as far as I'm concerned, it's all divine timing. Everything comes at exactly the right time. And it's the same answering that question about Iran. It's like, well, do you trust the creator or not? It all comes down to that.
I feel I just want to also share that is I genuinely have a lot of faith. I have a lot of faith in the essence, the essential quality that is the United States as from a prophetic perspective. I mean, I really have to throw the gauntlet down. It's, to me, a lot of this information, and I have goosebumps as I start to talk about it, it is prophetic because it's part of our civilizational history as we move out of the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius. It's to do with the cosmic clock and the ability to connect with our other non-terrestrial brothers and sisters, whatever that means. It's frequency increase, because when you expand the band of frequency, then there's the potentiality, of course, to making contact. Because if we're limited to that band of frequency, which we've been partly due to our own ignorance and also the control system of Saturn, now that is breaking apart. And my language is astrology, not exclusively, but it's so clear, it's crystal clear in the astrology with the Saturn-Neptune conjunction at the 0 point of Aries, that Saturn has nowhere to go. He's literally been burned off in the dross, if you talk it in terms of alchemy.
Wow.
Fabulous.
There is, this question came up from the audience. I want to get your guys' take on this. What do you think the biggest deception that is prophesized for the upcoming years, i.e. aliens? Will the UFO, UAP disclosure files contain even more psyops? Or spend this however you want. What do you see happening with the aliens and the UFOs as they get disclosed, if you will?
Mark, you go first. I'll come after you.
It's very interesting, isn't it? I mean, one of the reasons I'm generally calm is because I got visited by a ship, and it was very multidimensional, right? It was an orange, not rectangular, triangular with rounded edges, like a burnt orange color with black hieroglyphics on. And it was literally outside my back door. And then it went like that. And I've had a few experiences like that. I did a video about the stone circle. I went to Arbor Low in Derbyshire, which is, I think, is the most powerful stone circle on the planet, like intersection of 9 ley lines, but it's very low key and it's kind of little car park and you have to walk through a farm to get there. But when I was there with Gillian England, who's a really powerful spiritual intergalactic kind of character, healer, and she was kind enough to invite me over, and we went and filmed it and didn't know what to expect. But we unblocked it from the royal family who had been blocking these ley lines, because I got a telepathic message while I was in the middle of the circle to go outside of it. And I found these concrete blocks with VR, Victoria Regina. Immediately knew there'd be one on every ley line. And then there was a 10th one, which was George Rex, GR. And we cleared them. And then the sun literally came out of nowhere and it changed in front of my eyes. And it was very similar. It's kind of like, the way I can describe it is it's like an animation. It's like looking at an animation. You know, the sun changed. I had a black line and a white light going around it like this, and it was pumping out all these beautiful colors.
The codes change.
Yeah. And it felt like home.
Yeah.
And I can't describe it any better than that. It's like when I did ayahuasca, there's a song, Pachamama. You know, Pachamama, I'm coming home to the place where I belong. Sorry for my bad singing voice, but you know, it is that walking ourselves home. And I don't know how disclosure is going to play out, but I think we're all going to be surprised by it.
Yeah, that's a really great story, because certainly for me, I've had some interesting non-terrestrial experiences, but I'd like to, and I'm happy to share that another time, but I'd like to say, for me, one of the things to think about, let's just take the Second World War. It's such a hot potato. What excites me is when the galactic information, the codes come in for us as a planetary species, suddenly the Second World War loses its hot potato status. And there's a realization. And to me, see, that's the missing link for me, rather than just starting to, because I like to ask questions. I'm very interested by things. And you know, I have read quite a lot of Mike King and other people. I'm very fascinated with real history. And my whole, like all of us, my motivation is truth. I have no fixed belief, and that's freedom. At the same time, when we get the galactic information coming in about our DNA, about our real origins, our ontology, our epistemology, who are we as a species, then all the little mini history things, which are so hot potato because of Abraham and are we this, communism, Zionism, Jesuit, which is really important, it becomes kind of less, because you start to see the manipulation on a different level, higher level, and then the light codes can come in and we can restore that polarity consciousness once more.
Wow. There's so many good comments coming in here.
I like this one about Bono not having a dick. That's quite funny.
That's why I was a little bit in shock.
Actually, I was gonna say something to you. I have a theory. Bono glasses, very similar to Jimmy Savile.
Ooh.
Right. I think those glasses are a technology so they can pick their victims better, because they can see something through them.
Oh, wow.
That's a conspiracy theory, Mark. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
No, I will share something off air. I'm not ready in public about glasses. When I was dealing with the Ministry of Happiness in Bhutan, and in the United Nations, because I came across some of those glasses as a newbie, as an innocent. This was before the timeline change of 2016, 2017 was when I woke up. It was still 2014. That's very interesting. That's very interesting.
Well, I get insights, and I don't even know if I can trust them myself, but I just blurt them out because often the feedback to the insight is better than the insight.
Right.
But that's the collective. But okay, now that's interesting because a civilization is based on creativity. And so every single one of us brings a piece of the puzzle together. That's a healthy, vibrant civilization.
Yeah.
And it's not pyramidic. It's Arthurian in the sense of circular and mycenial, you know. And I like that. I think that's very important. I respond in exactly the same way. It's all about the interreaction, the co-creativity.
Right.
100%.
You know, while Mark is here, part of the show, I wanted to and will showcase George's website so we can learn more about George and walk us through. So I'm going to share the screen, George, to your website so people can see it. And
no bono for Bono. That is class. Who's done that joke? Mary. Mary Cock.
I love that.
I know. This is just, remember Bono channeled Mephisto. Yeah. And so in the early 90s, when Bono was wearing the devil horns and all that, I just thought, okay, I did think this is kind of a weird shtick to be portraying as someone that was supposedly Christian. So I think that's where it's one thing if a band from the 80s, you know, let's say it was not any specific bands, but it was Guns N' Roses or Poison or whatever, was showcasing certain things that might have seemed demonic, you know, Iron Maiden. But when it was learning about U2, where it was that, you know, the inversion that they came across as, you know, a Christian band in certain ways, that's where it was really gutting to me because it was so opposite of what I thought they were going to.
Well, Cliff Richard. Glasses, reinvented himself in the 70s as a born-again Christian, but really he was Kitty and he was into scatology with Melvin Bragg and is on the Elm Guest House list of pedos.
Right. I'm just pulling up some
but let's get back to George's website. I didn't mean to butt in.
This is very important because the truth is coming out. I mean, you know, it's interesting though, because Mark and I come from a very sacred I mean, the ley lines really matter to me too. I've worked with the elementals. I've never really shared this. I come from Cornwall, England. My family.
Oh, I love Cornwall.
Next to Tintagel. I mean, the elementals have always spoke to me. My grandfather said I was Fae when I was 5 years old, and you know, it's there. And people like ourselves, we come from those traditions. You see,
I got woken up by Oberon.
That's really great. And I think the thing is the complexity of the British Isles, including Ireland, is massive.
You're right back.
The polarity is so vast. The darkness is so omnipresent, and yet the light is so strong. And I mean, I'm fascinated by John Dee, the great astrologer.
Oh man, me and you got to do a show about John Dee then, because he's my favorite subject.
Oh my gosh, I'd love to do that with you. Maybe that's why we've connected today, because I've got goosebumps. Elizabeth I and the Armada, and how we could bring in some of the.
He was here. I'm 30 minutes from where he sank the Armada 3 times.
Wow.
Not twice. And Alistair Crowley was here.
Yeah.
I did my whole YouTube channel got taken down, 60,000 subscribers taken down, no warning, because I linked John Dee to Crowley, to Ian Fleming, to Jimmy Savile, to Philip Schofield.
Yeah.
Whole channel gone.
And it's weird because I know all this intuitively, you see, which is how, why, you know, that's what's so interesting, because you're a massive researcher as well as an intuitive. But no, let me try and get back because you essentially
we both love John Dee, Joe. You missed that.
It's amazing.
I knew there'd be something. I love that you brought that up and told me that. That's fantastic to hear that.
So there's we're healing. I mean, that's the thing, is the whole point is, in order for us to stay functional and healthy as a human being, is what we call it, we have to give it to God, meaning we have to divorce ourselves and pull away from our own fixed belief systems of who we are and seeing ourselves through our own belief systems. Because when we can do that, the healing really is exponential. And that's part of the Pluto in Aquarius, which is what's happening now until 2043, is when we can release the definition of ourself through belief, we really are on a path towards light and consciousness. And so whether we come from Britain or, I mean, I'm a patriot of the United States. I've been a citizen of this remarkable land now since 2018. I'm very proud of that. But I also care passionately about Europe. I mean, including Britain. I mean, and it has to be revitalized. And there's a huge civilizational battle going on at the moment. And it's not going to be easy, because for it to get its ley lines back, in order for the light to come in, we're going to have to pull out of the fixed doctrinal, whether we're political Zionists, which is the fix, whether we're political Islamicists, the Hamas and the Brotherhood, or whether we're the fixed doctrinal, fixed Christian. It's a distortion. And the breath of that, the softness, the Mary, if you like, the feminine inside of ourselves, it's not about the actual sexual gender specifically, it's about having that introspection as well as outrospection is the journey work. And so that's where the sound, the frequency is so potent. And maybe that segues to the website a bit, because, you know, in the beginning was the sound. And you know, we've already alluded that today, Mark and I, without discussing it explicitly, is the manipulation of sound, whether it's Bono or Prince Rupert Lervenstein, who was a friend of one of my godfathers, you know, who manipulated the sound for the Beatles and the Rolling Stones in the 60s and 70s, and the Royal College of Music from 432 to 440. This whole thing, because music is the great art. It is the universal art. And as Goethe says, you know, music is frozen architecture, and architecture's, you know, music is liquid architecture, and it's music is so important. And once we can pull that back and use the music for ourselves, for our own healing and divine connection, really, Houston will have liftoff as a planetary species.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Well, are we ready to take a tour of the website here?
Sure. Yeah.
Share the screen, and here we go. Okay. Where should we start, Mr. Lewis?
Well, I've really just done this in the last month. It's really exciting. I mean, it just shows you a little bit of a vignette into what I'm offering as, you know, astrologer, intuitive reader, tarot, but also, you know, looking at the art, why I paint, because at the end of the day, we're all creative. And hopefully it gives inspiration to all of us to tap into one's own divine creativity. One of the great challenges, but also directives of ruling Saturn, and remember, Great Britain's a Saturn-ruled country, Capricorn country, is the whole stem shut down of the spiritual, artistic, and the musical. And these are the codes of us as all human beings. So really, the whole purpose of this site is to show you that, you know, we're polymaths. We can do more than one thing. Yes, we want to learn to integrate them, but we can be musicians. I'm an amateur musician. I'm an amateur artist. I'm an amateur astrologer. I celebrate the fact that I'm not professional. I love it because it doesn't put pressure on me. Right. It means I can be wrong, and that's okay. And I'm always learning from people who think differently from me.
Well said. I love that, because it's nice when the pressure's off. Well, so let's dig into the non-professional components of your very professional looking website. Should we start with should we just go on the top? Should we start with the art and then okay, let's do that. The art is here. I love when as you go across the website, the wisps of color that we experience. So here we go. We'll start here.
Have you seen the list of people that have bought George's art? It's quite. I was looking at it earlier.
Quite interesting, because of course that was kind of all before the timeline shifted to 16,
yeah, 17. That's what I thought. A lot of royalty there.
Yeah, and it's really, and I put it up there because I'm not going to take it off. I as a result, I'm going to show my evolution in consciousness, because I mean, I am more aligned as who I am as a soul incarnate in the last 5-10 years than ever before, but it's been very hard. As we've mentioned at the beginning of the show, we've all got personal stories. At the same time, before I was painting and I got commissions, and they were sometimes quite posh commissions. I didn't necessarily get paid very well, but
they're often the worst payers, aren't they?
Oh, I've got stories, and they'll come out in time. I've got buckets of them, and they're really juicy and fun. But not. But art, for me, you know, I lived in the Middle East. I was court painter to the Sultan of Oman for a while. It was incredible because I was able to paint the camels get into the desert with the Bedouins, and the Middle East is definitely past life for me. It's like Bhutan as well. This world is so beautiful, and it needs to be celebrated. We need to build. I mean, one of my biggest dreams would be, once the XRP and the silver pops, I would love to build a town or a city based on the most beautiful Tartarian, and to put it in practical terms, a southern Italy style village with Tartarian etheric technology.
Yeah.
Mark, let's do it.
Because I'm so excited by that, because I've got the same vision.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So cool.
But also now the art that's showing, this is also my exploration of myself as a soul incarnate, fascinated by beauty in whatever way I find it. In that sense, I'm truly an artist. I find men and women equally beautiful and irresistible and repellent, depending on the frequency. And I think the photography, which is what's showing right now, shows that behind the scene of Islam. Because for me, Islam is so beautiful, but it's so tortured as well, like so much some of modern Christianity and modern Judaism. I'm really coming to realize that the Jews have heavy lifting, the Christians have heavy lifting, the Muslims have heavy lifting, the nihilist secularists of New York has heavy lifting. I mean, we've all got to come out of the distortion. And in a way, I'm sounding like our mutual friend, the Maori, you mentioned earlier. What's his name? Yes, the shaman. We have to come out. Huna Flash, thank you. And this is where now we see Bhutan and the spiritual. And I paint these watercolors, acrylics, mixed media, oils of the bountiful, beautiful nature, and how when we can inhabit the natural habitat and breathe with it, there's something so just dreamy and Piscean and magical about this planet, and it has to be reconnected. And I think the ice wall is real. I think the planet is vast. I think we've got a lot of exploration to do as we enter the age of Aquarius.
That's what I was saying to my daughter yesterday. I said, you don't understand. There's much. She said, why do you want to live to 800, Dad? I said, because there's so much more to explore. We don't even know. And we need that much time, because we've been programmed to die at 70 years and 10, right? Programmed to die at that. It's like a terminal diagnosis, because we believe it, we die. And
that's so important what you say, Mark, because that's the last post of Q. And I don't care what those detractors say. Q is a psyop. It's a positive psyop to wake us up. And when you say that, that's the last post of ascension in our DNA, when we can discover really who we are and our biological and more importantly, our cosmological lineage and divine royalty, to quote Alex Collier, another friend and mentor of mine. We really can step into that, and the technologies will help us. I mean, I'm working with PMF technology now. It's incredible.
What?
The 90 plus. I with Dr. Christian Northrup, I must say the P90 plus. It's mind blowing. We've done blood cell analysis in Sarasota, Florida. It's anti-inflammatory. It builds the mitochondria. We all need support because of the craziness that we.
Can you show George my healing center, please?
Yes, is that on your website? Because I have your website ready.
No, go to live5dhealth.com. I want.
Let's jump. I think it's fair.
Yeah, I knew this was.
Let's jump.
I want to show George this healing center, because
we can always come back to mine. Let's jump now to.
We'll come back to yours, because do you ever do retreats, George?
Oh, the whole time. I'm doing one in southern Spain. I've just done one in Mexico.
Right, you need to come and do one in the west of Ireland, because
I would love it.
This is breaking news, Joe. The house you stay. Did you stay in the big house?
No, the women stayed there, but I knew that there was some breaking news possibly with that. So please,
we've had the offer accepted on the 17th. Yeah,
that's so amazing.
So we're in the process of owning it, which is
congratulations. It's a beautiful house. That's amazing, and it's walking distance to the healing center.
17th century Georgian manor house, the healing hotel. We're gonna anyway, but you should come, George, and do a retreat there.
I love it.
This town, because the other thing is, you and me have to go to the site of where John Dee did it, because I have a theory that that site is where Mountbatten lived.
Oh, I know where you're going, and I need to talk to you about that.
There's a castle there. It looks like Dracula's castle. It's really foreboding, and I think that's the site where John Dee did the stuff. And that's 30 minutes from here.
Early geoengineering, isn't it fascinating?
Yeah, and also, what else was I going to tell you? I've forgotten now. Sorry. Anyway, look, this is show George all the heat treatments, please.
So I'm trying. So on the page, there's the spa day. Let me go to the top here. Where is it under therapies?
Therapies. Yeah. Look.
Okay. So here's red light.
Yeah. The penth is there's my eldest son and Gary, my business partner.
Right.
We've saved hundreds of people from going to hospital with this place, and we've reversed the number of terminal diagnoses, and it's been such an amazing venture over the last 3 years to have a physical location where people are coming from all over the world to this place. And
Scott and I went there in the end of September, early October. It was incredible.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. And now we're kind of developing into building a healing village in the middle of the town, which is quite extraordinary.
Right. Let's see.
Against some opposition, I might add, which is interesting as well. And Boyle is the name of the town. That's what I was going to tell George. There was a UFO crash here, George, in '97 in the mountains nearby, and it attracted two amazing people, one of which is an astronomer. He works with the space agencies. He set up a space telescope and automatically tracks UFOs, and he's recorded about 40,000 of them, 18 of which are completely irrefutable. And there was another woman. We would have all loved her. I never actually met her, but her name was Betty Maley. She died about 12, 13 years ago. She was the kind of woman that picked her children up from school by landing in a biplane on the rugby pitch.
Amazing. I love
amazing character. And, she set up the UFO Society of Ireland in this town. And then I'm here. It's hilarious. How I'm here. The only reason I'm here is because I cast a girl in a play 30 years ago whose mum was a famous singer from this town. Nuts. Anyway, that's enough about me. Back to George.
No, it's very fascinating how many synchronicities, which I love. You see, that's another thing for our listeners to listen into. Because I always want people to have a takeaway. So in this last hour and a half, the synchronicities, you see, are quite extraordinary. And so we listen to the synchronicities. You see, there's the spiritual life lesson. Because when we can witness it, see it, sense it, and we start, then our higher self then is speaking, and the codes are coming in, the co-creativity, because humans are so creative. And that's what Mark and I and Joe and all of us, we're trying to reimagine and get back that creativity, because that's when we're unstoppable as a species.
Yeah, we are.
Well, and especially when we're meeting each other, like to have met Mark Atwood in person, and then to go to the healing center and to have 6 of the people who watch, these amazing women that watch Truth Stream, they were there with us. And now Scott and I are going down to Dallas, and our dear friend Amy, who was in Ireland, she lives in that area. So we're going to see her in person. And now Scott and I are doing one of the women, Jennifer Yost, that did the ley line healing over in Ireland, Mark, in the little, underneath the little. So she's now creating a healing near Mount Rainier, and we're going to be doing that at the end of August. And there's a gentleman named John, who I call the Seattle Mark Atwood. He's going to be doing all the healing bowls.
What?
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to be interviewing him on the 14th, but we're just now meeting all of our tribe all around the world. And so now that you guys have met, this is going to be amazing to see what happens from the George and Mark experiment that's just starting right now. It's going to be incredible to see how this unfolds.
I'm looking for the clip of you playing guitar in the cafe.
Oh, I'm not even sure where that is right off the top.
I think I put it on my shorts because we're about to take ownership of that cafe.
Oh, wow. That's so cool. That's part of it too?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
We're going to make it the healthiest cafe in Ireland.
That is incredible. That is incredible.
I mean, I think also what's interesting is we're all sort of, because I'm looking for land as I speak with you guys today here in North Carolina in the Cherokee Mountains, very sacred ley lines here. There's a pyramid only 50 miles away, which is huge. And I think we're all setting up micro organizations and private, how do you describe it at the beginning, the private companies where we can, not companies, private
Membership,
thank you.
association.
And this is the new earth, isn't it? Is we're going to be healing ourselves by living this practice in community. It's going to be incredibly powerful.
Indeed.
Exactly right. And that's the, I just keep following the guidance. If you told me I'd open a healing center 5 years ago, I would have laughed at you.
Right. Well, I love how open both of you gentlemen are. Just the fact Mark had the ability to jump on the show and just go with the flow. Because at first, when Scott said he couldn't make it, I was sitting there like, well, I get it, because I've been dealing with my mom and her health issues at times. And the reason I wanted to set the show up initially was so Scott and George can really just talk freely about whatever they want to. And then it turned into this, because we're just open and we go with the flow, because that's the best approach, I think, So, and I'm keeping this one probably around an hour and a half. Is there anything that either one of you want to just say in closing? And Mark, did we show enough of your healing center? So for each modality,
I think you need to go back to George's website a little bit, because I don't think we can.
Let's do that.
Yeah, because I interrupted it. I'm good at that. I'm a bit annoying like that, but fair's fair.
Okay, George, when I pulled this up now, I would love to know if there's any specific area.
The retreats is interesting, because in the last 2 years, it's interesting. And Mark said he never thought he would be setting up, my language is healing temples 5 years ago. Well, I mean, I've been doing this for a while. I was chorister at school. I mean, I was at a boarding school from the age of 7 through 18, and I was putting the other choristers under the church bell and gonging them as an 8, 9, 10-year-old, and none of us got sick. And of course, I didn't know what I was doing, but intuitively I did. And music's always played a big part in my life. And in the last 2 years, I've rediscovered what I call water therapy. And I'm putting individuals in ideally salt water, which is ideally roughly the same sort of body temperature as the blood, so warm, and they float in it. And I'm able to unlock the spine through sound frequency. Sound travels much more efficaciously through water than it does through air. And I'm using a number of crystal bowls and Tibetan bowls, and it's absolutely incredible. People are having past life memories come back, in the womb experiences. They're really unlocking certain traumas. And this is very nascent for me. This is very new at the beginning. And this is just an example of how we're all rediscovering ourselves through all these different sound frequencies. And so really, this is what the site is, a gateway to come and explore that, whether it's through, having a day with me or doing it in person or online. I mean, the astrology and the intuitive readings are sort of better online. I prefer to do the sound as much as possible in person, either in retreats or day events. But I'm always open to any forms of collaboration.
Beautiful. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, no, that's so funny. This is getting mental, because the one word that I was going to say at the end was collaboration. This is what it's all about, collaboration. The time of competing and thinking about who's more famous or who's got more, all that's gone.
It really has.
It's like we have to join forces, we work together, and we achieve things. And then everybody's going to be a lot happier when we shift to that. But it's a bit of a way to go, but we're getting there.
Yeah, I mean, the illiterate of the 21st century in the future are not going to be those, will not be those who cannot read or write. In a way, they're going to be those who cannot unlearn the lies that they've been taught to believe. And also, the future is based on creativity, the co-creative bidirectionality of people coming together in light, in journey work and excitement. And there's no hierarchy, because everyone's bringing in their own soul contract.
Yeah, perfect.
There we go. George, I think I pulled up am I on the right page here? Hold on a second. I wanted to share this one instead. Yeah, okay. So this is the other part of your site that I wanted to share. Can you go over this a little? Because there's 1 day events, but there's also retreats. When is your next retreat that you're offering?
I tend to keep, if I'm honest, I tend to keep my retreats a little private. So they're mainly at this stage invitation only. I mean, I did 7 last year. I've done 2 this year, a couple more, because I like to honor the sacredness of the people who come together. And it's very alchemical, because always the right people come. And I normally cap it at 12 or 13 souls. It's very intimate. And the right people come. And ultimately, even more importantly than the astrology and the healing or the activation that I'm doing, because everyone heals themselves anyway, or the yoga that someone else is providing. I love to do yoga, but I'm not a yogi by any stretch. But all the activities, what's more important is the community. And that's what turns me on the most, is the co-creative projects that I see that they all create many weeks, months, years after the retreats. And so there's something alchemical that happens. So yeah, I'm doing a retreat in southern Spain coming up. I'm doing less this year. I'm doing a couple here in the United States. So people can always contact me if they're interested.
And he's going to do one in Ireland.
I would love to do one with you. And I think that's the other thing, is it's all about the co-creativity and the friendships that we come from it. So this is a total alignment. I can see a number of creative projects, and also maybe we need to refine the word retreat in the future, unless it's the Mary Magdalene retreat of the inner work. There's something also about the activation and the community building, because we're wanting to give a blueprint for how other souls can go off and create their magic with their community. There's the inspiration, isn't there? I mean, I can sense that's what you're doing. You're giving people the ability to fish. You're not just feeding them for the day.
100%. That's what all our ventures are all about. That it's sovereignty.
Yeah,
taking control of your health, your spirituality, your income, everything. That's what this work is. So yeah, I just do it in a slightly different way. I wish I had your skills. I mean, you're an extraordinary human being, and it's really been a real pleasure to meet you today. And Joe, it's great to see you again. Sorry we've not spoken much in the last few months. It's been very busy.
We've been very busy, very busy. Is there anything either one of you want to say in closing? And I can't wait for another show with the two of you, just whether hosting it or what.
It's such a big pleasure for me. A beautiful surprise, you, Joe, bringing on the great Mark Atwood. I'm so grateful to make your acquaintance and almost to reconnect with you again. It is like so many of us at this time. Same with you, Joe. It's a reconnection of souls. So thank you.
Yeah, you're very familiar to me. It's weird. It's good.
No, it's the same. It's the same.
Amazing. Thanks, guys. Really good fun.
Absolutely. Well, guys, you can obviously the websites have been up the entire show to dig more into georgehLewis.com or themarkatwoodshow.com. And this has just been incredible that Mark had the option to jump in with us, because it shifted the entirety of the show. And I think the feedback that we've gotten is just absolutely off the charts for this collaboration of us just having this conversation. It's gorgeous. It's amazing. So
yeah, you big softy.
All right, everybody. Well, I'm not sure what's next for Truth Stream. I believe we're probably doing Mondays with Matt very soon. I'm going to take some time and just enjoy the beautiful weather up in the Northwest, and setting up the next retreat that's coming at the end of August, or something people I have to reach out to. So, well, I'll just share this comment. Here we go. We'll end it right there. All right, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ciao. Bye.
All right.
Put us in touch. See ya.
I've known for some time something about the world ain't right. The darkness lives in plain sight. In the ether, adjust your eyes. There are those that have no clue. You give them hints, they just stare at you. Most have lived in Plato's cave, watching